Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. This is episode number 54. This is going to be a cool conversation for me. This is a long-time family friend. Him and I go back to, we just talked like 12, 13. No, he wasn't creepy. We were just, you'll get into the story. But anyways, this will be a special one for me. When I started up the show, I put this guy's name on my list of who I wanted to get to. He's making fun of me because it's 54, but I told him I had to practice before I got to him. So that's why we're here. Go ahead, introduce your name and what you're up to.
Perfect. Well, I'm happy to be here, Humps. This is great. So I'm Trent Dean. As Jeff had indicated, I'm a buddy of his, have been for a long time. I met Jeff when he was 13, 14 years old. I was his hockey coach, one of his hockey coaches. And we've just forged a good friendship ever since then.
Yep.
I'm a chiropractor here in Calgary, have been for almost 30 years, 28 years, counting.
It's been that long.
It's been a while, yeah.
Crazy.
And so I've been fortunate enough to see Jeff on a regular basis. Fortunate for me, maybe not so fortunate for him, but fortunate enough to see Jeff for almost 30 years and his family and friends. And so, yeah, it's been a long haul, but it's been awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. And like you said, number 54 for shows. So you held me off as long as you could. So I thought I didn't make the cut. I thought you were going to shut her down before you get me on. That's good. I'm looking forward to it.
This will be really cool. Like we both just said, Trent coached me in hockey my first year AA Royals. So, and it's so crazy to think back how young I was. How old were you?
Well, I would have been right out of high school, right first year or two at university. So I would have been like 20.
Yeah. Crazy.
20.
And at the time, I was young. I would have thought you were older, but it's crazy how here we are.
Yeah, for sure.
Like all these years later.
Well, I mean, I think of you as this young kid still or whatever. I mean, I'm older than you by a good number of years, but not by decades for sure. So
the crazy thing, what must be interesting for you is too the people that come through your shop. Yeah. All the old hockey players, all these kids,
which is great. Yeah, I get to see tons of young kids and families and people that I've coached, and now they've grown up and had kids of their own, and I'm seeing their kids, and that's been a really cool thing. That's the one many great things, but one of the great things is relationships that you make last forever. So it's awesome.
So we'll weave this conversation all over the place. The gist of the show is I like the guests to kind of go back as far as they want to go. How you grew up, where you grew up, what you're interested in. For you, it'd be interesting eventually when you figured out your schooling side of things and when you decided how you want to start your own business and all that. So go back. And the cool thing about this, dude, is that you and I have such a background together.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to be so cool, I'm going to say this now, when your kids watch this,
I'm not sure I'll let them watch.
At whatever age they decide to watch this, I think it's going to be a really cool time capsule.
Yeah.
Of a different way to understand who you are and where you came from.
Yeah.
That's me selfishly knowing what's going to happen after this.
Yeah. Hopefully they, for sure. Maybe
it'll be cool.
Something.
So go back to where you grew up, how you grew up.
Well, I'm born and raised in Calgary, native Calgarian, which there's not a ton of native Calgarians you run into these days, but born and raised in Calgary, grew up in the slums of Lake Bonavista with a brother and a sister and a great family. My parents sadly have since moved on and passed away, but great childhood living in Bonavista. All of our activities, all of our sports, everything were in that community. That's kind of the way we did it back in the day. So you could drive through that community. You wouldn't be able to go past two houses where you didn't know somebody. And had a great time. Mostly, we were a very athletic family. My brother and I played every sport known to man, from hockey to baseball, lacrosse, football, soccer, you name it. And so we spent most of our time in different sporting endeavors. All the way through till I finished playing hockey when I was 18 years old. And I was admittedly a pretty average hockey player, a AA kind of caliber hockey player. Never had any real aspirations to do much more than that, but graduated from high school, went to the University of Calgary to get my undergrad degree. I knew from the time I was 15, 16 that I wanted to be a chiropractor.
No way.
Yeah. So I knew pretty early on.
How'd you, because that's at a young age to know what you want to do is interesting.
Sure. Going through that with my boys right now, neither one of them have a clue. One's 20, one's going to be 18. Neither one of them have a clue what they want to do with their lives. My experience was I had an injury, like a sport injury, a hockey injury that I think about it now, I make it sound like I was out for months or weeks, but it might have only been a few days. But regardless, I was not playing because of an injury. Someone suggested my mom take me to a chiropractor. I went to a chiropractor, and I think it was within a day or whatever. It seemed like pretty quick. I was back playing hockey, and I thought to myself, that's what I want to do.
No way.
So yeah, I knew pretty early that's what I was going to consider. I always kind of felt I'd go into healthcare of some kind. I had family friend who was a dentist. I thought maybe I'd be a dentist. I saw other doctors over the course of my youth, and I thought maybe I'd do that. But when I saw the chiropractor and I had the success, I thought this would be it. So
it's rare though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think probably. Yeah, most people don't. It's crazy. Like when I went away to chiropractic school, I mean, I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor from an early age, and I became a chiropractic patient for the entire time. But when I got to chiropractic school, and some of the students that I met had never even been to a chiropractor, I thought to myself, how the fuck did you know you wanted to be a chiropractor? And so, but anyways, that was my experience, and yeah, I've never looked back. So yeah.
When you got to university,
Yeah.
what do you take there? Like,
So-
how does it work? This is so foreign to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a school
Well,
idiot.
I don't want to go that far. I kind of do this. But so one of the other things that happened around that time, it would have been a year or two later in high school that we had a career fair, and there was a chiropractor who was at the career fair. So of course I wanted to go kind of get the lowdown, and turned out he had gone to the University of Calgary. I believe it was the University of Calgary, but his undergrad degree was in kinesiology. And so I thought, wow, that looks kind of cool. And you had to do a special stream. Instead of going into the education part, you go into the medical stream, which is all your undergrad sciences and stuff.
Yep.
And so that's what I did. I have a bachelor of kinesiology.
Mhm.
I did all my undergrad sciences and stuff there. So all the undergrad stuff you need to get into medical school, you do for chiropractic school too. And so that was kind of my minor, was in science, and went through that in a relatively quick window of time. I did it in 3.5 years, not because I was super keen or super, anxious to get on with it. I just did a few courses in the spring and the summer just because they were going to be hard. And I thought if I could knock these off, I'll do that.
Mhm.
So I finished my 4-year degree in 3 years, 3.5 years, I should say. And then started to chiropractic school right away. I got accepted to 2 schools, one in California, which is where I ultimately went, and the one in Canada. I would have had to wait it was either a full year or full 6 months to go to Toronto to go to chiropractic school. I thought, no, I'm ready to go now. So I waited 3 months and went to Palmer in San Jose.
When did the coaching stuff start? How did that?
So that was, like I said, first year university. So I would have been young because, again, I was pretty young when I started university, 18. I was sitting in I think it was biology class, and a guy that I knew that coached me in Bantam, I think it was sitting a couple of seats behind me and threw some shit at me, and I'm like, what's going on? And so it ended up being Mark Goebel, and so he, we got to chatting, and some lady in front of me told me to, we're trying to learn and whatever. We got into a bit of a heated argument. I'll go back to her in a minute because it's an interesting story. Anyways, so Goebs and I started chatting, and I hadn't seen him for a number of years. And he mentioned he was coaching still, and said, "Hey, I need a coach. Would you consider coaching?"
Mm-hmm.
And that was the start of it. So,
and you knew, like, as soon as he said it, you knew him, and he was a good dude. And you were like,
well, I mean, I like I said, I finished playing hockey. Then I was decided I was going to go play rec hockey or something. But I knew I enjoyed hockey so much, I wanted to be around it, and that was just a good fit. And I had time. Other than university, I might have been working a part-time job or something. But so, anyways, Goeb said, "Hey, would you help out?" So him and I coached for a good number of years. Well, that was my first year, so we coached for my entire time through university. And then I went away to school in California for 4 years. And I coached when I was down in California.
I remember that.
And then came back and I continued coaching all the way through up until I still coach today. So yeah, that was kind of how that started. But the funny story of that lady, I'll just let you know, just because it's kind of relevant to what I'm doing now. She was a really attractive, nice looking lady. And I felt bad that I kind of like snapped at her for being rude, even though I was 18-year-olds probably being a jerk. So she was in another few of my classes. And so I went up to her and said, "Hey, I got to apologize. Sorry. My buddy was just being an asshole and I should have never done that." And anyways, we became friends. And it turned out she was married to who is now my partner, Mike Breen. So at the time she was married, she was in university. And so I told her I was going to chiropractic school. She said, "Oh, my husband's a chiropractor." I said, "Oh, that's awesome." I said, "Who's that?" She introduced me to him. And so I formed a relationship with him. And then when I was literally 6 months out from graduating, I had a few real interesting opportunities down in California that I thought I'd pursue. And out of the blue, I got a phone call from him saying, "Hey, can you get in touch with me?" And I got in touch with him and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity at the clinic here. Would you consider coming back and working with me?" So yeah, so that worked out perfect. So good thing I was nice, and I apologize for that lady. Otherwise, we would have never talked, and so might not have gone the path I did. So
how do you even the chances of all of that stuff lining up?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you give it any thought ever about how the fuck?
I just think I would have had other opportunities for sure. Like I said, I had a really great opportunity. I worked in this clinic. It was a sports med clinic in San Jose area when I was in chiropractic school, and they saw like Barry Bonds, and they saw some like these big elite athletes. This is what I want to do. And so I did have a great opportunity to potentially stay and work with that guy.
Yep.
And I could have easily gone that route. I'm glad I came back home because I love Calgary and all my family's here, and obviously my wife's here and everything else. But yeah, so I guess I would have gone a different route, but who knows? It just worked out good. And I still see all these people today, like Mark Gobes. I still see him all the time and chat with him regularly. So that's kind of neat to keep in contact with him. And yeah, so
that's the one thing about you. So after all these years and seeing you, monthly, weekly, over and over, you're like the super connector. But you're just in these circles, and there's people always coming through your world.
Yeah.
And it's just,
well, that's the one great thing about my job is aside from, I do love my job. I love to be able to help people, and I love the chiropractic side of it, but I do enjoy, relationships with people. And that's one thing I do get. I have high school friends that the only reason I see them is because they come to my office. If they didn't come to get care at my office, I might never see them just because we all have busy lives and stuff. So that's the one great thing is it does give me that ability to stay involved with people. And yeah, it's good. And I mean, I sure there's enemies out there, but I try not to go through life making a bunch of enemies.
Dude.
And so, you would know that. And so yeah, it's great that I get to stay, in friendships and relationships with people for a long time. And yeah, I do. I mean, I've been native Calgarian, like I said, so I know a lot of people in all different kinds of walks of life, and it's just kind of a pretty good branch. Like, if we started talking about people that and we looked at our social media and see the people I'm connected to that you're connected to, it'd be like, how do you know that guy? How do you know that girl? It would be crazy how much of a connection there'd be, but that's just part of it. So
totally.
Yeah.
When you were going through university, was it just because you were like single track, you knew what you were going to do? Was it pretty straightforward? Was there any like struggles, or was it just like put your head down and go?
Yeah, I never looked back. I never thought I was going to do anything other than this. There was a small window of time. I don't even know if I've told many people this, but one of the ladies was in organic chemistry, which is easily the hardest undergrad course in the University of Calgary. And I was in an organic chemistry lab, and I think the instructor, or maybe it was the assistant or something like that, seemed to think I had a bit of a grasp on it. And I did, I worked my tail off for it, but I did relatively well. I was very proud of how good I was able to do, knowing how hard it was. And she said, man, you got to consider going into chemistry. There's such a broad range of things you can do. And for maybe a split second, I thought, yeah, this might be something kind of cool. But she was kind of a lab geek, and she was a nice lady, but I wouldn't have found myself enjoying that kind of lifestyle or whatever. So that was a small window, I think, maybe that I thought of something else. But other than that,
just like go.
Yeah, I just did it. Yeah, and I say this, people always say, I always make a joke to people that travel a lot. They go on to these great vacations. They go to Europe. They go all over the place. And at first I say, well, the only regret I really have is I never did any travel. But I don't really regret it because obviously I did it for a reason. But I didn't do, like, I went straight from high school right to university, right to chiropractic school, right to work, and right to where I am today. So it's hard to up and go to Europe for a month or go to Australia for 3 weeks or whatever else. So I kind of wish I had done a little bit of that, but we'll do
really?
that. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I don't know because I don't know what I'm missing because I've never been there. But I do think that there's places in the world I'd love to see. Yeah. And when I hear people talk about these great places, I don't have any context or anything because I've just never experienced much outside of North America. So someday we'll do that. I mean, when I retire, when Carlo retires, we'll definitely consider those types of things. But
I wanted to ask you about the reason that you were obviously interested with the show is because I've known you for so damn long. But the second part is just building your business. Yeah. And before I started coming to see you regularly to fix my body and my brain, I just kind of knew you were up to things. Yeah. You were involved in hockey. You were involved in these like sporting things. Yeah. So walk me through what I want to get into with is just how you built your business and what you were up to it was different. You were like either volunteering, you were like community involvement. So just walk me through what you did to grow it. Cause you walked into a clinic. Sure. But you still had to build your own
Oh,
book,
and 100%.
essentially, right?
I didn't have one patient that was waiting for me when I started work, so I started from scratch.
And what does that feel like, though? When you say,
well, the worst part is I was in a lot of debt too. Like going to school is very expensive. It cost a pile of money, and my parents were really great. They made sure there was money for me. But I can tell you, the day I arrived back in Calgary after I graduated, I was down at the bank with my dad, settling up what I owed him, and combined my student debt and the debts for my parents, and I had a pretty good chunk of debt that I was starting out with, and I didn't have a single source of income. So that was a bit daunting. But
you trusted it though. You knew you're
I guess. Right. I mean, when you're that old and someone says, "Here, you're $100 and some $1,000 in debt," you're like, "Yeah, what's the big deal?" I didn't know what. Now, if I was $100,000 in debt for something, I'd be like concerned. But then, I didn't really care because what was I supposed to do? But I knew that it wasn't going to be a problem to be able to make a living out of it. I knew enough about what I did, and I was confident what I could do for people. But I was unsettled about it for sure. I mean, the first patient that walked in, and you actually have to charge them for your services. It's like, is this,
do you remember?
Oh, I remember the guy. I still see him. He's still a patient today.
No way.
Yeah, Jeff Dunning is his name. He's he was selling photocopiers. He walked into the office, and he wanted to sell us a photocopier. I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't need a photocopier. I don't have a cent to my name. But he goes, yeah, my back is killing me. I said, well, let's sort this out. So I never bought a photocopier, but he ended up getting care, and I've seen his whole family and seen him. And the reason I use him is my first because I remember he wrote a check for his treatment. And I still have that check.
No way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
crazy.
$32 or something.
Got a deal.
Yeah, I gave him a deal. Anyways, but it's So
what do you do? So you're in an office.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you get a little bit of foot traffic. You're sitting there trying to figure out how to build.
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing about the difference, the way I did it and the way people do it today. First of all, and I'm still a bit of a dinosaur because, as you know, I don't even have a website. I've been working on it with you for about 10 years, and I haven't got my act together to get it done, but I promise I'm going to do it. But I mean, when my clinic that I was in there for 20 years, and I've been where I'm at now for almost another 10. I don't have foot traffic. We're on the 5th floor of a building, and now I'm on the 16th floor of a building. I didn't have exposure. I don't have a sign out front. There's no sign when you drive up to my building that says Dr. Dean's. This is where I work.
Yep.
So it's all about getting myself out there. And so when I got involved in all these activities, whether it's volunteering, whether it's coaching hockey, whether it's other stuff that's driven patients into my office, it's never been under the pretense that that's what I'm doing it for. I do stuff that I enjoy doing. And when someone asks you what you do, it's just funny. It's two responses. It's like, oh, you're a chiropractor. I've got this shoulder issue or this hip issue. Or they say, oh, you're a chiropractor. Oh, you're one of those guys. Like I'm some kind of a wacko. Mm-hmm. So, but the ones that do inquire about it, I say, yeah, I can probably help you. Let's have a conversation. And then inevitably it goes from there. And then of course you just word of mouth and whatever. That's the way I built my practice for that long. And so nowadays when I see young chiropractors going on social media, posting, free assessments and, spinal screenings and all this stuff through all this, that I think I would never do that. That's just not me. I wouldn't feel comfortable. I love talking about what I do. I love being able to talk to people about chiropractic and what I can offer them, but I don't want to go to the mall or to some sort of a place where they're doing these types of health screenings and whatever else. Mm-hmm. It's just not my style. And so when I do all the other volunteer things that I do it because I love that stuff, and it just meet more people. So it's all about that network, I guess.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
and just a different approach.
I guess so. I don't even look at it as approach, because when people talk about the business side of chiropractic, I think, well, I don't know. I don't run a business. And I'm like, wait a minute. I guess I do. I pay taxes on it as a sole proprietor. I run a business, where I have to pay rent. I've got to pay salaries. I've got to make sure I pay myself. I got to do all these things. So it's a business, but I don't look at it that way. I didn't know what a chiropractor made when I started chiropractic. I knew what a chiropractic treatment was, and I had experience with it. I was going to do that, but I didn't bother to find out how much money a chiropractor can make. I had no idea. So I'm glad it's made enough money to at least have a lifestyle.
You could pay off the 100.
I paid that off, but I thought I'd have a big party and it would be great because I'd burn this big debt thing. But then you realize, wait a minute, now I have a mortgage, now I have this. So it wasn't that much of a big party after, but rolled it into the next thing. But thankfully it's afforded me a nice enough lifestyle that I can provide for my family. And my kids are, very active, so it takes a lot of resources for all that. But as far as the business side of it, there's probably a lot of things that if you went to like a chiropractic
like the marketing class for
they'd be like, this guy does not do anything shouldn't be in business. And so I guess I'm fortunate that I'm able to do it the way I do it, and I do need to integrate some more strategies, I guess, not for any other reason, not to build my practice, because I feel like I have a substantial enough practice. I'm comfortable with where I'm at, but just I think you need it just to substantiate yourself. If someone wants to see, hey, wants to check me out, and they go online to look up my website, they're like, what the heck, this guy's... So it's under construction. Wow, it's been a long time. It must be a pretty intense website. But there's enough stuff on me online when you look it up that people would be, oh, I can see where he's at. I mean, they can find me, and there's enough stuff on there, mostly good stuff, that they can scroll through and find out a little bit about me. Yeah. Which I don't put that stuff on. It's just on there, and
it works.
Yeah, it works out okay.
When you I want you to go back to when you decide to volunteer at these places and get involved with people. Yeah. Just talk about like where you decide to go and what. I understand why you went. You know, you wanted to be around like-minded people. You wanted to give back. So just because the reason I'm on you on this specific piece is just because you've built a business in a very authentic way, and I still think that the way you decide to get involved in community can be done with digital. Yeah, and it doesn't have to happen, but I want to just, because I saw it from afar. You know, you and I weren't like heavily connected back then when you were building it. Sure. So yeah, just like where you decided to go and. Yeah.
Well, from the volunteer side of it, I mean, I've done a lot of different volunteering things. I mean, obviously the major component of it is obviously as a volunteer hockey coach. So that was not a business move. That was a purely enjoyment thing. Something,
but it turned into like a good driver.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I see a lot of people at my office. I mean, I can tell you right now, probably the single biggest referral source I've ever had to my office, individual person, is Bob Merkley. And Bob because and I coached Bob's kid Cam, and Bob would refer anyone that he knew to me, even with problems that I can't help them with. But he just believed enough in me that says, hey, go see this guy. And so again, that was just because I happened to coach his kid who was around the same age when I met Cam. So and I kind of realized, geez, that's good, and that people believe enough in me to do that because they knew me as a hockey coach. But so that part of it, I think, worked out really well. But all the other volunteer things, I volunteered in as I worked at the Calgary Urban Project Society at CUPS for about 7 or 8 years in their medical clinic there, which got me connected with some medical doctors. I went there every Friday and treated homeless people mostly, or people down and out that didn't. It was some pretty tough patients there, but I volunteered there again. I don't know quite how that happened, but got involved. Meeting some good people, and they've been a good source of referrals. I haven't seen some of them for 20 years, and I still get the odd referral from those people. So that's a pretty cool thing. I volunteered in my community. I was a director in the community association before we moved out to where we are in Springbank. But in the community we're in before, I started a program, soccer t-ball program for kids. I did it because I wanted my kids to have somewhere to play soccer and t-ball and not drive all over the place and charge a ridiculous amount of money. So we did that. Started with 30 kids, went to 60 kids, went to 120 kids. And I did it for 4 years because my kids aged out, and I'm like, well, I want to keep helping, but someone else can do it. I think the year that I finished that program, there was about 180 kids in a soccer t-ball program that we started, like from scratch. And some of those people are still people that I see regularly. Rob Ricacci's a guy he's a lawyer guy in Calgary. I met him through that. He's got 3 kids. And I still see him every 2 weeks from that. So, and he's constantly recommending people. So again, those are things that I did that weren't necessarily to build my business, because I networked people, and people always want to know what you do. Yeah. And so, that's the way it kind of went.
It's interesting that, when you're in the moment, you don't see it as a business driver.
Yeah, not in the least. That was never the intent. Yeah.
And it's kind of how you operate too today, right? You're willing to do anything to help the patient. Sure. And back then it was volunteering, whether it's kids or whoever. Yeah.
Yeah, just stuff that I mean, partly initially it was stuff that I was interested in, and then it became more stuff that my kids got involved in, because I coached them all the way through their minor hockey. And when I couldn't coach anymore because they don't have parent coaches, I got into the managing side of things. So I managed AAA hockey teams for the last 4 years, both my boys going through that. And so again, those were just ways to spend some time, but also, get involved. And I'm not good at sitting on the sidelines. If it's something I can do, I want to help out. If it's something I can't do, I always think if I had girls, if I had kids, instead of boys, if I had daughters and they wanted to go in a dance or something like that, I think I'd be screwed. I mean, not that I wouldn't support them, I do it, but I wouldn't know what to offer. I'd maybe get in the fundraising side of things, but I wouldn't know whatever. I wouldn't know. So I'm pretty lucky my boys got into stuff that I was interested in and stuff that I was able to at least contribute.
Yeah.
Just worked out perfect that way.
And the idea of like, when you first moved back here and started the practice, a slow burn to get it going. Like,
it's funny because I just talked to a young lady not that long ago who just started, and she's done things differently than I did things. I went into a practice that was existing, so I didn't have a huge outset of cost that I had to pay for to start a practice. I was able to kind of walk into a space and then build my practice.
Like lease a space?
Yeah, the space was already leased. My Dr. Breen, who I mentioned, I got into it with his wife about the incident, that one. So he had the practice. Someone that was with him for a short window of time decided to move somewhere else. So the idea of the practice was there'd be a few doctors in there to offset overhead costs and share costs. And so with this guy leaving, he's like, well, he didn't want to pay the full fare. So he asked me to come in. So I picked up where this guy left off. Although he didn't leave behind many. There was a few patients I think I likely did see. But nonetheless, that's the way I started. So this young lady that came in to see me, fairly recent, just started her own practice, but she's went and leased space. She's on the hook for a 5 or 10 year lease. She had to build out the space. She's got to do, and I'm thinking, my God, how expensive would that be? And what a stress that would be doing that from scratch. I wouldn't do it that way. I couldn't do it that way. I believe in myself. I believe in what I was going to do, but that's a big nut to crack. And that's, and I think she's got some backing. Some parents are probably going to take care of her if she can't do it. She's going to be very successful. She's a smart girl, intelligent girl, but it takes a long time. So you say, how long does it take? Well, I mean, I never once thought from day one, geez, I got to get up to this. I got to get up to that. But I'd say before I ever really thought, geez, I'm doing okay, it was probably 5 years into practice.
Like it's a slow burn to build.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, like if I went back and looked and see those kind of deposits that you're putting in the bank, there would have been some pretty lean weeks and months and stuff. But
and you were just willing to continue that down the kind of the path you're on. Volunteer, network, community, word of mouth.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, when you get up and you go to work every day and you think, I don't know if I'm going to actually earn a cent today. I don't know if I have any income coming in. Or that was probably, but it's such a long time ago. I don't really remember ever thinking, God, those were terrible days. I don't ever think that. And even if you only had 2 or 3 patients to see, it's like I was jacked to see those 3 patients. I was going to make sure, and I spent a lot longer with them because I had nothing but time. And so it was just, and it built from there. And I just thought to myself, after it wasn't 5 years when I finally think, I mean, I'm sure it was a little sooner than that. It was probably a couple of years or a year or whatever. I think, I'm going to be able to make this work. But just kind of the gradual, slow progression of it for sure. There's even days now when you think to yourself, like, I pay a lot more overhead costs. I have a lot more rent. I have a lot more other things that have to be spent. And I think to myself, whatever would ever happen if all of a sudden I didn't have anyone coming in the door and I had to pay for this. I think about that the odd time, but it's usually pretty short-lived.
Yeah, it's quick.
I can take care of, I'm sure that part of it won't ever be the issue, but yeah, I mean, the world's a lot more expensive. It's a lot more expensive to do everything these days. And I still charge the same rates I was charging patients 8-9 years ago, to be honest with you. I feel really that's a big thing. I want to make sure if I was to go get care from somewhere, I don't want to be, having to take money out of my retirement savings to look after my health. So I want to make sure people can afford it. And I make arrangements with lots of people to make sure they can do it. I'm there to get them to feel better and to help them. The financial part of it has never been an issue for me. I can't tell you the number of people I've taken care of for nothing.
Where does that come from? Like, how do you... It's funny.
It's a good question. It's not like I'm trying to be some extra great guy. It's just, I just feel like I have had. Now, if someone comes in and says, look, I can't afford to get my treatment today. I'm really down on my luck. And then they tell me they're leaving for Hawaii for 2 weeks. After I'm like, geez, I feel a bit, and that's happened for sure. Absolutely. I don't want to get taken advantage of, but the people I'm willing to help are people that I know need help. I can kind of sense that. I've probably guessed wrong a few times, but for the most part. And then there's been some that I, like, again, from CUPS, from volunteering there, I had patients at CUPS they were street people that somewhere down the road found me where I'm working now or the clinic I was at before, and started to come in to see me, and they were paying because they had jobs and they could now take care of them. So that was pretty neat to be able to do that. And again, I knew I was volunteering there. That was, nobody came in there needing a deal. No one's paying at CUPS. They didn't have they didn't have a pot to piss in, so to speak. So But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's, again, maybe because I don't look at it as a business, I look at it more as a service.
It's still not, eh?
Yeah. I mean,
it's so interesting for me, like just obviously getting mine off the ground and trying to make good decisions and trying to get word of mouth going. And so that's why,
when you have these like marketing gurus that come to talk to chiropractors and how you build your business and stuff, it is just so different, and that's just not me. So I'm glad that I can build a practice the way I do it, but it's not me. Whether it's offering these special discounts and setting them up for programs, and a patient comes in and is like, yeah, we're going to need to see you 3 times a week for the next 6 months. It's like, how do you know? I've fixed patients up in a visit, but I've also taken months or years. And I feel strongly in what I do that I always recommend people do something to get regular maintenance, ongoing care, just like a dentist would, or somebody else who provides people with wellness care or kind of long-term vision of how their health should be.
Yep.
But some of the way young chiropractors are doing it, they're doing it. They got big bills to pay. They've got way more debt than I had, twice as much. Plus, they've just gone and signed a 5-year lease on something that's going to cost them thousands of dollars every month. At the end of the day, they need to make money in order to service that.
Yeah.
And I never had that stress. I was never that way. I knew that I'd be able to. I can't remember the ranges that I had when I started with Dr. Breen, but I don't ever remember thinking, I don't think I'll be able to cover rent. It never felt like that. So so it must have been pretty good from that perspective. And it was cheaper back in those days too. But so yeah,
it's very interesting. And you say it's like a service. You look at it as a service versus a business. And
100%.
And the crazy thing is, the amount of people that I've told that come see you, like,
you're up there, one of the top 5 referrals.
I would assume so.
I've been fortunate. Guys like you do a lot of the hard work for me, for sure, because it's.
But it's the approach. It's the approach that gets you the referral.
Yeah, I mean,
like it's your approach.
Yeah, there's people that do things a lot more sophisticated than I do too, for sure. And I respect the fact that they have way more overhead costs. They've got more money. So they do things their way.
Yeah,
it's just I feel like I can give the kind of care and service I need to give, and I'm limited. I refer patients out to all kinds of different people if I can't help them.
Yeah,
and but they end up coming back for what it is that they know I can provide for sure. And so it just seems to be the way I've done it, and I think it's worked relatively well. I mean, I'm not ready to retire by any stretch for a while, but hopefully, I won't have those days where I'm sitting around thinking, geez, am I going to be able to keep the lights on in this place? I think those days are gone.
And do you trust it? Do you just trust that you're doing it the right way? Like, do you're not, I'm assuming you're not looking at numbers being like, oh, this is January 2021. I was down compared to 2022 and I adjust. You're just like, you like head down, stay consistent.
I've never done that. I've never looked at my numbers. I've never looked at stats from that perspective. And you're supposed to. A lot of people say,
Supposed to though, but who's saying these things?
Who knows? I mean, marketing guys and people say, how do you grow your practice? I never do that. I mean, I just know that my practice is pretty steady. I mean, I know kind of what my patient volume will look like on any given day, week, month. Yep. And if I have a really slow week for whatever reason, by the end of the month, it's probably about the same as it always would be. And I do have there's lots of capacity blockers for sure. I can only spend so much time at my office, and I like to spend enough time with a patient. I don't like to see a patient in 5 minutes and send them out of the office.
Yep.
So I know that in a given day, I can, see a certain number of people. And I do that most days. I see I'm comfortable. I'd like to maybe do less because my body feels like it's getting a bit beat up. And I do feel my elbows, wrists, shoulders are really just repetitively beat up.
Yep.
So I'd like to do less, but I'd never not see somebody. If someone needs to be seen, I'm not going to not see them. So, So, yeah.
It's just interesting. It's interesting because I think how you've built it makes a lot of sense even in today's world though. So all these like marketing fools that you talk about that are talking about all these like levers to pull to,
for sure.
I think at the root of everything though, if you're going to, and this is me talking about my business for a second, when you think about just providing a good service, being available, like networking with people, doing some things for free, just volunteering when you can, and kind of just letting the people that understand what you're doing.
Right.
Is kind of the slow burn to build something.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. It's, I guess from that perspective, if you really sat back and kind of reflected on it, it's probably worked out really well for me to have built the relationships that I built with people to be able to have them part of my practice, which is great. But I never did those things for the intention of driving clients. I never do that. So it's just not the way I don't think about it that way. Maybe you should start thinking about that way, but I don't.
You don't have to.
I didn't think so.
Like 30 years deep, like
yeah,
you don't have to.
Yeah, no, I think I've been probably pretty fortunate that way, and I'm sure I have friends who have been. I've been in the same practice from the day I started, and I have friends that have had 4 or 5 different practice switches,
JVs, whatever.
Yeah,
just
they've had to start with someone, then they went somewhere else, and they opened up a practice. Yep. Didn't work out. They closed. They went somewhere, and I've been lucky that I've never had to do that.
What is that though? That's a you thing though, right?
I'm not a big guy. I don't like change a whole lot for sure. So that's probably part of it. I've lived in the same city my whole life. I've done some of the same connections. I've had the same wife for 25 years. Not that I ever would want to have more than one wife. It's been just perfect. But yeah, I just like keeping things the way they are. And so, yeah, I have 2 more years left in my lease, and my partner, Dr. Breen, is older than I am by at least 10 years. So I don't think he's going to practice forever. I'm sure he doesn't want to be a leaseholder forever, because it's a bit of a stressful thing. You sign a 10-year lease and you're like, okay, if I break my hands or my arms or my wrists and I can't practice I still got to pay rent.
Yeah.
And so, I think he's probably at the point where he's probably not wanting to sign a real long-term lease. I don't know if I want to sign another long-term lease. I'd like someone else to be the person. I'd just come in and do my job and come and go. But I like to be in charge of what I do. I like to have a bit of control over that. We've had lots of people come in, other chiropractors that have worked with us for a bit, massage therapists, other specialties that have come in and worked in our clinic, and they just come and they pay rent every month. Yeah. And when the month is done or whatever, that they don't have to worry about anything. And if they can't pay rent, they'll say, "Hey, I can't cover rent this month." It's like, okay, I'll cover you. Well, yeah, what do you do? I mean, we unfortunately we can't go to the landlord and say, hey, guess what? Some of the people that sublease space from us can't cover their rent. So the landlord doesn't give a shit. They're like, good, just pay your rent. Yeah. You deal with that. And so, which is just the craziest thing. So I'd like to be in a position where I could do that. I would never do that to a person, but I just feel like, yeah, it's a bit of a big nut to crack every month when you're responsible for that. You sign your name on the dotted line. So we'll see what happens in I think we have another year and a bit on our lease.
When you switched clinics, I remember that. Yeah. And that was that one probably occupied some brain space for you, because totally, it was a change.
Sure. For sure. Yeah. And again, we moved like a
block and a half
away. So it wasn't far. I didn't have to go very far.
But still though, all the routines everyone had created.
For sure. And I was worried about that for sure. So, but that being said, it was close enough that it was a pretty easy, you could see the other clinic from my one window. Yeah. It wasn't hard to be able to do that, but it was a change for some individuals. And whether there was any attrition or whether we lost any patients from it, I don't believe so. I might be wrong, but I don't believe so. So yeah, if we do make a change now, and I mean, we live way in the West End, we live out in Springbank, so it's a bit of a jaunt every day, and I drive a bit, and I'd love to be able to just, drive 10 minutes and save a little bit of commute time. But I think it'll be something we'll have to evaluate this next go around. But that was a bit of a stressful thing, partly because I didn't know how people would respond to that. It was a brand new, after 20 years of doing the same thing. But that was, again, like I said, I don't like change, but there was enough of a change there that it went just fine. And if I have to do it again, which I probably will, there's a pretty slim chance I'll release the space that we're in now. Yeah, for sure.
The other thing I want to get in with you is the dedication to the hockey world. Yeah. And you're coaching again. Yeah. And you're not coaching your kids.
Yeah, it's true.
What is it? What is it that drive? Because you're like heavily involved in the hockey world.
Well, I have been, and sometimes, I mean, maybe too much at times. Maybe I should let other people do things. But again, same thing. I get involved in something I think I can offer some help to. But I do love it. I mean, I don't do it because I need any other additional power in my life or nothing like that. I do love hockey. I love being around it. I love the fact that my kids are so involved that I've been able to be part of their experience. But as you know, any of these things always require volunteers. And so when they ask for a volunteer, I always find my hand just going up. And I was the vice president at Springbank Minor Hockey for 7 years. And I stayed on after my kids had left. So I did it not because I had any need to help my kids. They managed just fine without me. And so I did it for a while there. And now I've moved over to where I'm coaching now in the Northwest Association. And again, don't have any kids there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love being at the hockey rink. I love being around the people. I love going for a beer with the coaches afterwards and talking about what goes on. And again, there's some great people that you get to meet. And so it's a lot. I've definitely bit off a little more than I can chew this go around. I'm sure Carla would acknowledge that. With two boys playing, high level of hockey and having to travel all over the province to watch them, I don't like to miss a single game of theirs. And then I got to come back and make sure I'm there to coach this group of kids who aren't my kids.
Yep.
So maybe a bit much right now, but it'll taper down, I'm sure. And then next year when Owen's done playing junior hockey, hopefully he'll get on with his life and go to school, and he's still, hopefully the goal is to play hockey when he does it. But Easton's going to graduate from high school, and he's going to kind of figure out his life too. So I'll probably have a bit more time. So I'll stay involved in some capacity for sure.
What is it what's the pull though? But it's and the reason I ask you, because I'm coaching my nephew.
Yeah. I'm
that like weird uncle coaching under 9 kids with no skin in the game.
Yeah.
But there's something about, well, for me, it's family, right? When I have when you're helping shape a family member,
sure,
it's really important.
Yeah.
But when you don't have a kid like you are right now, there's some draw, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the fact that I volunteered in other things too. I volunteered in baseball. I volunteered in soccer, every other sport the kids play. So it's just part of me wants to be part of what they're doing, and they need people. And as you know, it's the same small percentage of people that are always doing all the volunteer work. I mean, I know your mom was a volunteer long after you left, and that's, I always think about that and think how awesome, people that I know are willing to step up and do it. And so I feel like I should be, one of those people if I can do it.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, if I didn't have boys and I ended up with daughters and they were involved in something, maybe it would be a much different thing. You'd probably
figure it out though.
I would do something. I know I would
angle,
for sure, but I don't know if I would be as enthusiastic about it because it would be something that's maybe not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I don't have a reason, I don't feel like I need to get out there and do anything more for the community or I don't even think of those things. I just know that they need volunteers, and if I've got time, I want to do it. And so I just find myself putting my hand up. Probably too much sometimes for sure, but it's good.
It's basic.
Yeah,
I'm not downplaying how you operate.
Yeah,
even how you built your business from deciding to volunteer. There's no ulterior motive. It's literally just you doing something.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think about so many of these things that people say, oh, that's just so good for your business. I'm like, has it? And then I realized, of course, I guess it has. Because it's relationships. It's all about that. And that's, I love being around people. I have a bunch of friends that I've known from high school. They're still friends today. And all the parents and families and friends that I've met since my kids played their sports, I still anticipate I'll see them forever and ever. And so, some people have a nice small little network of a couple people, and that's good. I like to cast a big net, and some people I love just to go for a beer with, and that's all I need to do. And other guys I like to spend way more time with, And so, I guess I just look at it as that way. I mean, I don't need to fill my my friend basket with any more people. Not why I'm doing it, but it just turns out that you come across people like, these guys are great people. I'm going to, spend time with them with doing other things. And the fact that they might want to come and see me is great.
Yeah.
And I use their services too. I mean, whether it's, someone who's a lawyer or someone who does the work that you do, I mean, that's, you're my go-to guy for those kinds of things. And they're my go-to guys when I get sued and all that kind of stuff, which hasn't happened, knock on wood. But I have some of those in my back pocket. Just, again, it's not, you don't go around thinking, okay, I got to meet someone now who is a dentist because I really need a dentist. I just happen to have a dentist who's been a patient of mine, and now I'm his patient. My family's his patient, and anyone I know, if they ever need to see a patient, need to see a dentist, I'd say Dr. Ricacci's the man. He's the guy.
Yeah.
And I think he would do the same for me. So it just works out good that way.
It's so cool, man. Do you think there's any being a born and raised Calgarian?
Yeah.
Do you feel a different connection to the city? Do you? You and I are both born and raised here.
Yeah.
And you and I both have a circle of connections.
Sure.
Is it? It's not just being from Calgary; it's just deciding to be involved in different networks.
Yeah. I mean, I've only lived in California, San Jose, just outside of San Jose, so I haven't had a bunch of other places I can compare to. I mean, I knew right away I wasn't going to live in California for a variety of reasons. A great place to visit, but not a place I'd want to live.
Yep.
But I mean, Calgary. I mean, we're fortunate because we live in a smaller community in Springbank, so I'm kind of away from the city, so we got a little bit of peace and quiet out there.
Yep.
But then all the other amenities that you need in Calgary, and Calgary, as much as it's a big city, it's got a bit of a small community feel.
Yep.
And so, like when I went to university, I remember, I'd walk around through the university, and I mean, I knew a ton of people there. And it's like, how all of a sudden but I guess it's just from being around and with all the different connections. So I feel Calgary offers you that. I'm sure I'd find that if I went to a small community. There's times I think about moving to a small community when I retire and when we're looking to slow things down, not having to worry about commuting much and kind of have everything right there. But I might go a little stir crazy if that's the case. Yeah.
Because
I was in Strathmore. My Easton played a game in Strathmore on the weekend, and I got there a bit early. So I went and sat down and had a bite to eat and kind of looked around there, and people walking into the restaurant, the bar there were all farmers, and you could kind of tell. And then same thing in the rink. It was like tons of cowboys and farmers stuff. I thought this would be a great place. But maybe I've never experienced it. I don't know if I'd want that but that kind of thing is kind of appealing to me. But yeah, I think Calgary is, it's all I really know, so I don't have a big comparison to it. But I think it offers a ton. Yep. I mean, talk to people that come from anywhere. Talk to people that come from Toronto or from Vancouver or places like that. I mean, those cities are just so different than what Calgary offers. People talk about traffic in Calgary. Really, like, go to Vancouver, go to Toronto, go to places like that. We don't really have much traffic to deal with it yet. We're a big city with a big downtown and everything you ever could need. So, yeah.
It's funny. You kind of segued right into like how I like to end these things.
Yeah.
It's one. The only question I ever ask anybody is, when I say Calgary, where does your head go?
Oh, geez, that's a good question. I don't know if I have an immediate thing. I mean, obviously, when people talk about coming to Calgary, want to see Calgary, I mean, the first thing I think about is obviously like the mountains and the beautiful surroundings and everything around there. So we live in a great part of the world and where people come from all over the place to see Calgary, but it's really the surrounding areas and stuff like that. But Calgary's got a bunch of great people. I have not met a bunch of people in Calgary that I think, geez, these people, what a bunch of assholes. And I don't want to stereotype or anything, but I mean, you go to certain places and there's an attitude about people that in other big urban centers that they have a different kind of a vibe, and Calgary doesn't have that. In my opinion, there's a bunch of great people in this city, and I've been fortunate enough to meet them through work or through my other endeavors and stuff. And yeah, I can honestly say I haven't gone through Calgary with a bunch of people that say, God, what a bunch of assholes. It's the exact opposite, which is a good thing. I don't want to go through life making a bunch of enemies. I'd rather make a bunch of friends, and that's kind of what Calgary's been for me. So yeah, that's kind of the way I would view it.
Well, you've done that, obviously.
Well, I think it's we're on the right track. I'll probably get run out of town. It's still early. I'm still young, but no, I don't think that there's a place I would rather be right now. At least I can't think of it in my life for sure. So we'll see what happens when my kids, move on. Whether they stay in Calgary or not, I don't know. I get a little bit sour on things. I get into politics more than I should, and I sometimes question some of the kind of the political side of things about what goes on, but yeah, for the time being, I'm happy to be here.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, for sure.
This has been cool, man.
Yeah, it's great, Humps. I thought this was just some big smoke and mirrors thing you did. I didn't know this was actually a real scene.
This is
great. So I'm glad that you gave me a chance to come in and chat with you.
Yeah,
I thought to myself, maybe a little bit weird, because every question you're going to ask, I'm thinking, well, you pretty much know everying that I do.
I know, but
yeah, there's some things there that we probably talked about that maybe you didn't know. So it's good.
It's cool. Yeah, and like you said, I was thinking the same thing. I see you every 4 weeks. I've seen you every 4 weeks for a decade, I bet.
Yeah, at least.
At least. And before that, I had to see you like 3 days a week.
For sure.
Forever.
Yeah.
So anyways, you and I are like constantly in contact.
Yeah, we go way back for sure, but it's great. It's good.
So, this is cool, man. And I'm glad you could talk about the community and how you built what you've done, because it makes so much sense to me. But I think what's very interesting is those lessons can just be transferred into anybody building something, I think.
Yeah, I guess when I really kind of reflect on it or think back on it, I'd probably say, yeah, it's been pretty cool to do it that way. I just never thought of it that way. I don't think of it. I don't think about running a business. I don't think about marketing. I don't think about those things. But I guess if someone had to figure out how I do it, they maybe would tell me, oh no, you're already doing it. So yeah, that's great. But,
you should be on stage at these bullshit marketing Cairo things.
I don't know. I don't need to get up there and do that. I do old school. You see my bookkeeping. I still keep I don't use a computer to do my bookkeeping. I add it all up. It's one of those ledger books. My accountant's like, well, if it works for you, it's great. So
at least you don't have a BlackBerry still.
I wish I could have a BlackBerry. I don't have an iPhone. There's no way. I still use the only reason I use a Samsung is because I can kind of segue into my BlackBerry. But yeah, I'm a little old school when it comes to that kind of stuff. But like I said, technology and everything else, getting the websites and things. I've thought I need to do that. I got to get on. I got to get on it.
No.
And you've told me to get you all the information,
Dude.
and I've been. It's coming. It's coming. I'm working on it.
You do what you
As soon
do.
as
and
I find some time.
it works.
Yeah, no, it seems to be working for me.
Thanks for taking the time. I know you're
No,
obviously...
it's great. I love to have the opportunity. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Doc.
Yeah, it's awesome, buddy.